Hi everyone, my name's Joris Peels, and this is another edition of 3D Printing News Unpeeled. And tonight we're going to be talking about, well, a couple things. GCAN Aerospace is one of them, and GCAN is now investing over 50 million pounds, about 63 million US dollars in Sweden. That is with the help of 12 million of that, or a little bit more than 12 million of that, is from the Swedish energy agencies promotion of industry kind of body. So, a part of that invested by GCAN and Trollhattan Sweden. The plant at Trollhattan is using 3D printing as a major way for the fan case mounting rings of Pratt Whitney's PW1500G engines. So that's a really prestigious, really high value, very, very critical application that GCAN Aerospace is doing. And now they're going to invest in the plant. That investment is going to lead to another 150 jobs, which is great. And it is a really good thing for Sweden as well. Amexi recently is kind of like this. Well, it's a lot of assets owned by the Wallenbergs, plus a bunch of other things working together to industrialize 3D printing. They've been making a lot of strides forward. Siemens Enegry has one of the largest production sites in the world, doing also really advanced metal components in Sweden. AIM Sweden, other service bureaus are quite advanced as well. They've, of course, got Arcam. So there's a lot of stuff going on in Sweden. Sweden is theoretically really the birthplace originally of metal 3D printing or powder bed fusion for metals. Initially, having been commercialized there by Electrolux, and a lot of the powder is being made there by Sandvik Högg and also other companies in Sweden as well. So it's kind of a more natural home to metal 3D printing than a ton of other places in the world. And it's really good. Now, there's another good reason, I think, going forward that this GCAN investment makes a ton of sense. Sweden is maybe or is on the cusp of becoming a NATO country. It still needs the okay of Turkey. And when they do that, we would expect other NATO countries to purchase a lot of, or relatively lot more than they have been of Swedish equipment. This includes perhaps Saab equipment, like really advanced radars and really advanced kind of systems. Also, maybe the Gripen aircraft, other kind of aircraft, although that's a little bit less likely, although the aircraft apparently is very, very good value for money. But everybody else is plumping up for the Joint Strike Fighter type aircraft, and no one's really trying to like fill the gap of having an actual cost-effective fighter that could be used in the front lines well. But apart from Saab, there's also Bofors, for example, which has a lot of anti-tank munitions or advanced missile systems. And this, of course, in very great demand because of use in Ukraine, and also because countries now see how effective this kind of stuff is. So 3D printing for replenishment of stocks, 3D printing to accelerate manufacturing is going to be a big thing. And yeah, with that incoming, hopefully soon, kind of NATO ascension, could come a lot more orders, and that could mean a lot more business for GCAN in Sweden. So good news for Sweden in particular, and and up until now, Germany, which further the development of metal 3D printing with EOS and Trumpf and what's known as SLM Solutions, working together, with a couple other companies and Fraunhofer. They are now the kind of like the home of metal 3D printing. But hey, perhaps with these kind of investments, a relatively small country like Sweden could become, a very powerful player in metal 3D printing. So that'll be good news. Another thing of good news as well is Godrej Boyce. Godrej Boyce is a really large industrial conglomerate, essentially in India, and the biggest part of that conglomerate is Godrej Construction, the biggest part of Godrej, and they have just 3D printed an office actually. And this thing is called the Cocoon. Really. It's only 46 square meters. Now, I love a couple things about this. And one is it's a relatively compact structure, and it's been optimized in the design for very organic, very, very nice looking, I think, as well, 3D printed kind of structure, which has been kind of part, at least, optimized for 3D printing. They didn't start with the architecture. They didn't start with some cool, like, Jetsons type idea. They started with optimum shapes for 3D printing. It's a 46 square meter house. And another thing I love about this is they produce the thing in 40 hours. What they mean is that's the print time, not particularly the curing time and all that stuff, but the print time itself, plus all the other hours they needed to fit in the electronics and the to fit in the plumbing and all this other stuff and paint it and all that. And I think that's a much more realistic thing to be talking about than just talking about the print time, because who cares if the print time is really fast and it takes you hundreds of hours to do all this other stuff. Now, I love this as well, is because it's an Indian company taking this construction 3D printing technology to the next level. We don't know which technology they used or who they used, whether it's their own machine or something by someone else. But I love the idea of using this kind of technology for infrastructure, for housing, perhaps, but also for offices in a country like India, where it's quite difficult to get from one part of the country to the other, and would be quite difficult to transport things, and it's quite tricky to build certain things, especially there using 3D printing either in a factory type context to make things in an accelerated way, or to build them on site would be like a very, very exciting, I think, proposition there, much more so perhaps than a country with like a little bit more easier to transport large things around road infrastructure, like a country like Germany or Belgium or something like that. So I like that very, very much, and I think we should really be paying attention to India. There's a bunch of stuff happening there. These guys predicted a bus shelter. It's everybody's first kind of 3D printed object. Been a 3D printed post office, some barracks. There's lots and lots of stuff going on in India. It also fits in with the government's plans. The government is really touting digitization, and the government and a lot of government leaders, we've talked about this before, show up when you inaugurate these 3D printed structures. And that kind of prestige and this built in India kind of stuff can really kind of like propel this forward as well in a way that could be less evident if you did this in Denmark or whatever. So I think, this is like, we're seeing more and more in 3D printed construction in India. The need is very vast there. And it's a huge business opportunity as well. So I think this is something to really, really pay attention to. We always think of Europe and the United States leading the 3D printing revolution. That's a historical accident. Think about India's space program, where they came out of nowhere essentially to make an incredibly cost-effective, incredibly well-functioning space program. They have the technology new to put a rocket in space. They can 3D print houses as well, right, guys? It's not as difficult as a space program. So why couldn't India at one point become the biggest market for 3D printing construction? Why couldn't the biggest vendors come from there? I think that definitely for 3D printing construction, because it's so nascent, because it's so new, but relatively easy to get started and relatively difficult to make like really advanced progress. And because the market in India could be so colossal, and it could be one regulatory regime as well if they got that working smoothly. Well, it's theirs to lose, really. And I think it could be India could be the home of 3D printing construction. I think it'd be much more difficult in metal 3D printing or polymer, powder bed fusion type technologies, and other things that are already kind of underway somewhere else. But because it's so new, I really do believe that for 3D printing construction, India does have a shot of becoming the biggest country in that space. So, and that could be an exciting opportunity, I think. For everyone. Okay, the next thing is 3D printing organs, but not that kind of organ. This is the Rieger Orgelbau, which is an organ company, which is for the Helsinki Music Center, made a very kind of in-your-face, very obvious, very super cool organ design that deviates quite considerably from the traditional organ design we've seen with these metal straight pipes. This goes all over the place. Imagine how dramatic this is. As a customer sitting in the bleachers here, or as a musician sitting on the stage, this is really a kind of eye-catching piece, really fantastic. I think, first off, what's interesting here is that they use a material from a UPM Formi. It's a 3D printed biocomposite. Finland, right, is all about making cellulosic biocomposites. It's all about using this existing wood industry that they have considerable amount of to make sustainable wooden or wood composite materials for construction and anything, right? And they're also really gung-ho about doing this in 3D printing as well. So this is what they're doing here as well. So it's a polymer composite material, which I was surprised at, really. The other thing which I think is really quite curious is that this organ company commissioned this thing, and it was printed in Burgos in Spain, but I still can't find out. And if you know this, please put it in the comments. I still can't find out who actually did this. There's a couple of companies in Burgos that are doing some 3D printing and even maybe some large format composite 3D printing stuff. And I cannot for the life of me find out definitively who is the actual company and the technology or the machines that actually printed this structure. So that could be interesting. But I love this very much. If you look at this material, the cellulosic biocomposite material, and an architecture thing, I don't think the world market for organs is very, very vast, right? even though there's a lot of cities in China who maybe want a concert hall, and maybe if they include organs, then it could grow considerably. But apart from that, yeah, this is not a huge thing. But 3D printed polymer for architecture, which is sustainable, which is true to form and works really well, and can make these really dramatic custom structures. Maybe not a pipe next time, but a kind of like a very visual piece, or someone's head, or something really dramatic like this. I think that's a huge market for anything from malls to public spaces to company spaces and stuff like that. And if we, as 3D printing and large format 3D printing, get known in this sector as something good, as a problem solver, I think that could be a considerable thing for us. Anyway, my name is Joris Peels. This is 3D Printing News Unpeeled. Thanks to 3dprint.com, as always. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this and found this very useful. Have a great day.